I am both thrilled and humbled to be joined today by Lou Mongello. Lou's name should be familiar with anyone who loves Disney. He's a former attorney who left the practice of law to follow his passion for Disney. As one of the OG Disney experts and influencers, he is a passionate keynote speaker, a business coach and mentor, and the host of WDW Radio, a website, podcast, and community dedicated to celebrating the magic of Walt Disney World, the Disney parks, Disney Cruise Line, Marvel, and Star Wars. He is also the newest member of the Podcast Hall of Fame. Lou, what a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your time and congrats on that honor. Well deserved.
Thank you so much for finally having me, Jonathan. I've been trying to get on the show for years, and after like all this begging, you finally had me come on. So thank you very much, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
That is so kind of you to say. Obviously, the honor is all mine. Thank you for being a part of it. It is definitely one of the highlights of my short podcasting career so far. So, yeah, just to start, you talked a little bit before with me. We share a couple things in common, right? We're both East Coasters, both recovering attorneys, both Disney lovers, and for better or for worse, Giants fans. Um, but you've made a career and crafted an amazing personal professional reputation for your love for Disney. So don't necessarily need to rewind all the way to the beginning because I know you were again an OG 1971 Disney World fan, but take me back to your law days since we kind of share that background. What'd you do? What kind of law did you practice?
So I'm originally from New Jersey. I was in a small plaintiff's attorney firm with my dad,
Yeah.
a couple of lawyers. My cousin was one of the attorneys too, so it runs in the family. Um, and I think just wanted. I think hindsight being 2020, like I think I've always just wanted to help people, right? So as a plaintiff's attorney, somebody gets in trouble, they need your help, they come to you, whether they're buying a house, get into a car accident, wills, estates, whatever it might be. Having a general practice, you do a lot of various different things. I started an IT consulting company on the side because I've always been a computer nerd,
Mm.
and I wanted to help people, network their computers. Again, this is going back to, the very early 2000s, network their computers or build a website, get their businesses online. And then I started the Disney thing. I think from that same desire to want to help people, enhance their enjoyment and appreciation of the parks.
So you've always been an entrepreneurial guy, right? I mean, working at a small firm, you got to hustle. Starting your own consultancy, you got to hustle, and certainly, being an original creator, you got to hustle. Is that something that's come easy for you, or is just part of your DNA?
I'm going to give credit where it's due, man. And both my parents are deceased, but I give all the credit to them because my dad was an attorney. My mom ran my uncle's, he was a neurosurgeon, so she ran
Oh,
his
wow.
practice. So
Yeah.
they always had a lot of other businesses, right? Whether, they built the first freestanding medical imaging facility in New Jersey. They had an antique store. They had a bagel store. They had all these things on the side, which I didn't realize were instilling in me this sense of entrepreneurship. Because remember, like when we were growing up, if you were a quote unquote entrepreneur, it meant you were a bum. Like it meant you were
100,
unemployed. Like,
100%.
now it's like now it's like cool to be an entrepreneur, but they were always doing stuff on the side. They always had this side hustle that
Yeah.
they did out of love. Like they just loved the things that they did. And I did not realize that that was probably something they were instilling in me. And then as I look back and, like the very first book I ever wrote was like a DJ hand. I had a little DJ company on the side when I was in high school and college. And I wrote a DJ handbook. Like I printed it out at home. Like I had a binding machine. And I think that was the start of my own personal little entrepreneurial journey.
With How to Scratch Records 101.
Yeah, basically.
That's awesome. So what was the inflection point for you practicing law when you said, all right, it's good, time to transition out? Because I'll tell you, mine was very, very vibrant, and I still remember it. But tell me yours, and I'll tell you mine.
So I think it's twofold. And the first one is very much to a certain degree tongue in cheek. There were times in my practice, and I've always done everything passionately. Like, and as an attorney, you represent. They say you represent without passion or pressure. You can't help it, right? I represent with passion, and I cared about every one of my clients. And sometimes, um, whether it was your client, whether it was the other attorney, like I just couldn't get up to like fight every single day. Like that was not in my DNA. So I think on one hand, that was part of my inflection point, and this little thing, this side project, just to see as a personal challenge if can I write a book and can I get it published? on the Disney side of thing, never expecting it to be a path I would start to go down. There was a moment along that journey that I said to myself, I don't know how, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think I could make a business out of this. And fortunately, I had the support of people like my parents who were like, go do it. My dad's like, go do your thing. You could always come back at half salary and give it a
Double
shot.
the hours, half the salary, right?
Exactly.
So it's funny you say, because I had my inflection points both happened within the same week. One was I almost missed the filing deadline because I was a litigator too, and nothing strikes fear into the heart of a young attorney when everything clenches, Lou. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm having like
Oh,
flashbacks.
it's just cold sweats, right? So it almost blew a deadline. And then similarly, sitting in a deposition and just everyone is nattering and arguing about just nonsense, about stuff that's not substantive, and not like procedural things don't matter, but it was just nastiness. And it's like,
For the sake
what?
of arguing, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why am I doing this to myself? So
Yeah.
it was then that I realized I had to get out. But it sounds like it wasn't really for me. It was running away and not running to something. Sounds like for you, it was running to your love of Disney.
Yeah, because I had started because my IT consulting business on the side had started to grow. So at one point I transitioned out of law, was doing that full time, and then was the chief technology officer for my parents' imaging company, which basically meant I was just locking myself in my office and doing my Disney stuff anyway. But yeah, there was a certain point that I was spending so much time and investing time and money and effort into this that I said, I think I can, I think I'll tell you what my inflection point was.
Yeah.
It came out of fear.
Mm,
And it wasn't fear of failure, it was fear of regret because I
mm.
didn't want 5, 10, 20 years to go down the road and go, I wonder what would have happened if I really would have given this Disney thing a shot. I did not want that to happen. So I said, look, I'm going to take my chance. I'll see if I can make it work. If not, like at least I can say I went all in and I gave it a shot. And to this day, man, when people would ask me like, what do you do for a living? My answer, which was honest and sincere, was whatever it takes. Meaning,
Mhm,
if this
mhm.
Disney thing didn't work, I would go work at, not to take anything away from anybody who works at Waffle House, but like I'll go work at Waffle House to
Yeah.
make sure that the rent gets paid and my kids eat, 1 or 2 times a week. So you
That's
have to be
all you
willing
need.
to, yeah.
Um, and so the Disney bug hit you early, right? So like, I remember on your podcast you mentioned 1971. You were there, so and it was a family affair. It wasn't just you. Those are memories that were cultivated early on in your life.
It's why I love it as much as I do
Yeah.
because my family, we spent a lot of time together. Um, and it was all, it's not like Disney was the one place that we escaped to. We had a great relationship, but these core memories were sort of formed there. I mean, I remember specific moments in the 70s being even as a young kid in Tomorrowland with my dad it was 19 I can know it was 1976. We had like these red, white, and blue Mickey Mouse hats and
The bicentennial.
carrying me and my little brother, and we're going to ride If You Had Wings for the 37th time of the day. So it was those memories. And I think for a lot of us, it's the emotional attachment that we have to this place.
It's why I've done this. Is why you're doing what you're doing. And now, back to you in your career, right? So you said you're going to go all in. You started writing a book. Talk about the book. And it wasn't just writing a book. You literally picked up the family and moved to Florida to get things going. Talk about the calculus. Talk about how you talked the family into it and how you were able to just kind of continue to build upon that momentum.
So, the idea, like I said, of the book was, can I do it and can I get it published? Never thinking anything of it because I always loved the details and the minutia of Walt Disney World and what it was that kept bringing us back every year. So I think having been in the service business my whole life, I wanted to make something once and resell it just to see if I could do it. I learned everything I could about, the book publishing industry. I found a publisher, signed a 3-book deal, and was sort of off to the races from there. As I started to iterate from there and not just have the book, but write articles and then start podcasting in 2005, there was this sort of light bulb like moment. And then, I'm flying back and forth from New Jersey to Florida. I've got young kids at home and my wife, taking care of them. And, she'll call me like the toilet's overflowing. I'm like, I got to go. Wishes is starting. So, like, that's a real conversation that honestly happened. Um, there was a point that I came to this realization about going all in. And I remember the moment I went upstairs and my wife was watching TV and I said, I think I could do something with this, but I think I need to be where what I do is. And the words okay were not fully formed out of her mouth yet that I ran downstairs and started packing. Like, I'm not going to even give you a chance to change your mind. And because I knew if my kids were older and
Yeah.
heavily entrenched in school and friends, it would have been a lot more difficult. So, um, I think there's a fine line between, you know, taking that smart, very calculated leap of faith, which clearly it was not, because I was going to figure out how to make money once I got down there, and being an absolute crazy person. So unfortunately, I mean, some people might say I'm still on one side over the other, but I landed on the side of, I'll take the leap of faith and then build my wings on the way down.
And, getting your family moved there, did you instill in them the same love of Disney that your family instilled in you? Or was it like, oh, dad's a Disney guy, let's just kind of humor him?
No, I mean, look, when you have two young kids and you're like, listen, we're moving out of like gray, dreary, snowy, icy New Jersey, and we're going to live right behind the Magic Kingdom and go whenever we want. That's a pretty easy sell.
Yeah.
But we didn't go anytime we want, and we still don't. 95% of my business takes place right here at my desk,
Hmm.
other than when I'm traveling to speak and do things like that. I'm not in the parks every day. We didn't go to the parks every single week, maybe sometimes not even every single month. So it wasn't like, oh, really, Dad, Disney again? It was still fresh. It was still fun. It still is. Because for me, everybody's like, well, what's your exit strategy? You've been doing this 20 years. I'm like, my exit strategy is when this stops being fun is when I'll move on to something else. And I'm very, grateful that it still is fun for me and still is fun for my family too.
That's amazing. You know, Also you mentioned podcasting in 2005. Like you were on the cutting edge pretty much of everything that was going on in terms of broadcasting. I remember hearing a couple of your podcasts, like you used to come in with a laptop and you had all kinds of different, you probably had did you have the VCR camera as well with like
When
the
I was a
big,
kid, my dad did, and he would walk with the big camera, and I'm a tiny little guy. I had to have that big, heavy, like battery pack with the big VHS cassette in it.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But I mean, 2005 is early for podcasting. Have you always had kind of the sense of having your finger on the pulse of the technology and how to capitalize upon building an audience? Because it's easy to say, oh, everything kind of happened at the right time, but it sounds like you made very deliberate and well-informed choices.
I'd love to say yes, I'm a visionary and a futurist. No, I've always been a tech nerd, right?
Yeah.
So, my computer, my Tandy TRS-80 and my Apple IIe were my
Apple
best
IIe,
friends.
Apple IIe with the green monochrome screen is the
Yeah,
greatest thing
they
ever.
were my
Yeah.
best friends, in grammar school and high school and things like that. So I was always a bit of a tech kid. And as I tell half jokingly but true, the story of asking, I hear about this technology about podcasts, and I literally asked Jeeves, what is a podcast? And the reason why my show name is WDW Radio is because nobody knew what the heck a podcast was. So I had to put a word in there that was going to instantly make people understand that this is some sort of a spoken word medium. But I really have always been, even in the 20-year journey, you get complacent, you die. And I'm always looking to do what's next. I'm always looking to sort of move the needle and advance and try and innovate as quickly and as often as I can.
Yeah, and you've cultivated a reputation, right, as an expert. I know you're a humble guy, but the truth is, you're an expert in Disney, and people turn to you for advice and guidance. It's a pretty heavy weight of responsibility. No, I mean, it's easy to say I just talk about Disney, but I mean, every time I listen to your podcast, I want to go to whatever restaurant you're going to. So, I mean, there is an influence there. How do you feel about that?
I never thought about it this way, and now I feel this incredible weight of responsibility that I didn't five
So,
minutes ago.
heavy is the head that wears the crown, Lou.
What did they say? With great power, there must also come great.
Yeah,
No,
I've heard something
and
like
thank you
that.
for that.
Yeah.
That means a lot, and I take what I do very, very seriously, because one, my name is on it, and two, the Disney name is on it.
Yeah.
So our level of expectation is not only very high, but I think needs to be exceeded. And I do take what I do very. And look, it's also, it's part of the reason why I do a very positive show. One, it's just who I am, right? Because as podcasters, you can't fake this.
Yeah.
Authenticity has become this marketing buzzword. In podcasting, it's not, because who you are has to come through in the content. But I also want to talk about the things that make people happy and enhance their, appreciation and things of the parks. And, we were talking before we started recording about the podcasting journey, and it's not, You don't start podcasting, it doesn't start raining money down until you do it. And if you're doing it to make money, you're doing your why is wrong, right? Like you have to do it because you have this passion for this thing. But when you get an email from somebody, or I meet somebody to meet in the month, or at one of our group events, and they say, because of your podcast, this happened. And the thing that I try to instill in other podcasters, creators, whatever it is you never know who's listening. And I don't mean that as a warning. Like, you don't know who's listening, so be really careful what you
Don't
say.
screw it up.
Because right, it's out there forever, but you don't know how what you say might positively impact somebody. And the greatest return, the greatest rewards I've ever gotten about this, and this is not about me, but this is meant to be sort of this, umbrella lesson for other people, is when somebody comes to you and says, your podcast helped me not have a great vacation. Your podcast kept me company when I was going through this hard time. Your podcast helped me. I'm going to start crying because this was a relatively recent conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about committing suicide, and like, how do you respond to that weight? Or your podcast got me through cancer. You were my own. Somebody reached out and they shook my hand and said, your hand was the only one that was holding mine as I was laying in a hospital bed, trying to get through cancer. Like, you hear and you're like,
okay.
right, like, like I talk about Mickey Mouse for a living.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the subject is, you don't know how that might impact somebody. So the very circuitous answer to your question is, yes, I do take that weight of responsibility very seriously, because people aren't coming to me to try and help get them through something. But if it has that effect, then it is an incredibly wonderful gift and a privilege that I feel like I have.
I so appreciate that. And listen, it is the power of positivity, right? You have your own saying, right? It's all about doing the good, doing that. Of course, I'm going to blow it. It's like, yeah, it's right. It's right. Exactly right. Just be a good person, and that positivity shines through, and that is what comforts people. And for me, not to make you feel weird, but like I think I told you, I wouldn't have even thought about doing a podcast if I hadn't heard you and inspired me to be able to create. And as I mentioned, I work at Amazon, and one of the things that Jeff Bezos said before he left Amazon was create more than you consume. And you create good, positive things that create wonderful experiences and inspire people, make people feel better. It's a wonderful thing. So thank you for that. Just
Thank you.
personally for me, I would never be doing this if it wasn't for you. So thank you for that. But uh, back to the actual substance of it, yes, it's positive, but I also think the reason that people turn to you is you're fair. Like, you're not unduly negative. You don't take the troll route, but you like things, and when things are good, you say that. When things aren't so good, you're fair and balanced about it. Now, you're not going to trash anything because that's not fun, but you say, look, this wasn't my thing, and here's why. And that's credibility that it's hard to get and easy to lose.
Yeah, the most important part of what I do, what you do, what anybody who is look, because we're all in the relationship business, right? That's I don't care what job you have, what career you have, we're all in the relationship business. And to your point, that trusted relationship that I want to have with the one person who's listening is very difficult to build. It takes a very long time. It can very easily be lost. And I've seen that happen with other people. So I take that relationship with somebody that I've never met before, right? This is the first time you and I have ever sort of spoken before. But I take the fact that we've corresponded. I take that trusted relationship very, very seriously. It's why I answer every email, every message, every post, every comment personally. It might take me a little while, but I get there, because if you are going to give me your most valuable commodity, which is your time, you better believe I'm going to give you the respect and courtesy of a personal response. And I think it has to come through in not just content that you create, but the face-to-face interactions and the stuff that we do online.
And that kind of carries through in addition to your other, business ventures as well, right? So you have WW Radio, but you talked about wanting to help people. You are a keynote speaker, you're a business coach, you have, retreats to help entrepreneurs. Talk about that, how that got started, and how important that is to you in the midst of all your other things that you do.
Well, clearly I was bored and I had nothing else to do. No,
Disney's not a 24-hour job at all, because hardly anything happens there.
You were asking me earlier, like, what time do you usually go to bed at? I'm like, well, it's a lot earlier than it used to be. It's about 12 o'clock. So, when I first started out, again, I had a wonderful support system of my family, but nobody really understood what I was doing. So I'm a sponge, right? I always want to be. There's a saying called ancora imparo, which means I'm always learning.
Hmm.
I'm always in this cycle and season of learning. So I used to go to conferences whenever I could because I wanted to be around the people who were doing not exactly what I did, but were sort of speaking the same language, where they were entrepreneurs, creators, podcasters. It used to be called new media back in the day. Um, and I would go to these things, and a couple of things happened. One, I go and you go to a conference and there's 10 different tracks going on, and the things that you want to see are all happening at the same time, and you can't be everywhere at once. And I literally, and to prove to you that I'm telling the truth, I would go to the conference, and I remember there was one that I just like, I was going, I got all this great information, and I wrote it in this black and white notebook, and I brought it home, and I put the notebook down on my desk, and I was like, I'm going to execute on all these things. And then what happens, right? Life gets in the way.
Of course.
Life, kids, job, pets, whatever it might be. And so I still keep this notebook on my desk with those notes as a reminder, because it's why I started saying, look, I know what it feels like to be, this is a very lonely existence, right? As a creator, whatever it is, the cats are great. They don't give me a lot of positive feedback because, when the kids were at school, my wife's at work, and we're home alone doing this. So I didn't necessarily have somebody to help me. Plus, I was doing something that was brand new. There was no legacy of podcasters that came before me. So I said, I want to one be able to help people that are first starting out, and I want to create an opportunity for people to come and not have to do that, not have to one choose different tracks, get lost in a sea of 2,000 people. I'm an introverted extrovert, so I don't want to have.
Mm.
I don't want. I would sit in the corner and just sort of like eat lunch by myself. Sounds a lot like high school. Eat lunch by myself, and I would just take all my little notes and go back to my room at night. So I started doing like one-on-one coaching and mastermind groups because when I joined a mastermind group myself, it changed the trajectory of my business.
Yeah.
I was accountable to other people. I could speak the language to the other people. I could talk to them not just about what was working, but what wasn't, the struggles I was having and the challenges. And so I eventually created an event in Walt Disney World because I want to give you one more excuse to come to Disney,
Sure.
but it's one room and it's 50 people and you don't have to make those decisions. And we do the work in the room. So you come out not with a notebook full of notes, but you come out on the other side different and farther ahead than you were before, and hopefully have made a network and community of people that understand what it is that you do.
And you've kind of crafted, obviously you've drawn upon your own experience to coach, but you have a fairly systematic way of working through things. Is that just based upon your experience? Like you said, you're a sponge. Have you, drawn from different resources to create your own kind of Bruce Lee type of business martial arts?
Listen, I was always a Bruce Lee fan going up, so being mentioned in the same sentence as Bruce Lee was probably the nicest thing that you said out of all the things you've said tonight.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think part of it comes from my legal background
Mm,
because
yeah.
when you go to law school, you're not taught how to be a lawyer, right? You're taught how to think, you're taught how to um, uh, go through certain processes, and I think those things helped me later on develop both the way that I podcast and prepare for an interview or prepare for
Yeah.
a segment and be able to story tell with a guest. And I think it also did help me be very sort of intentional in crafting the journey and using my own experience as there's no blueprint, but at least trying to help create a roadmap for people to sort of have those milestone moments and celebrating the wins and overcoming the challenges and things like that. So I put a lot of that into the 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 events that I do. Everybody gets like a 200-page workbook, which is just like exercises and things that I've gone through in the past, and um, having that accountability too for people as well, so that when they leave, they don't go home all excited, and then nobody be like, "Hey, what'd you work on this week? Tell me what's your goal next week? What are your challenges this week? How can I help you?"
I got two dogs, very professional. That's it. Um, so you mentioned, the coaching part of it, and there is a lot of that one-on-one piece, but also it's working with a broader collection of people as well. how are you able to translate either working with one person, working with a lot of people? Because no one's the same. Everyone's got their own different journey. How do you make sure that everyone's getting what they need?
Yeah, that's part of the challenge
Yeah.
because I'm a very much a high touch person. So I feel that I am most effective when I sit down with you and I hear what your story is, what your individual challenges are, the things that you're going through, so we can craft a solution that is specific to you. It's why for years, so many of my friends in the space were like, you need to build a course, you need to write a book, you need to do it. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't ask a course a question. A course
Hmm.
is talking to now I finally sort of cracked my own internal code in terms of the course that I wanted to build because I do want to be able to scale a little bit and help more people because when we trade time for money, there's only so much of us to go around, right? You can only
Yeah.
like coach so many people in a day. Momentum is 50 people. It's by design because I don't want it to be I never want it to be a 2,000 person event because I want to be able to look you in the eye and
Yeah.
hear exactly what it is that you're working on and give you that very personal type of guidance and coaching because there is no one size fits all solution. So the courses that I have are meant to be ways to help get you started, help sort of give you a bit of a roadmap. But I think the in-person events and I think the coaching and things like that and the mastermind stuff is the best way to be most efficient and effective with my time and with their time as well. But yeah, I also want to help as many people as possible too.
And another thing that it helps with is accountability, right? You mentioned it. You can tell people what to do, but it's easy to tell people like the notebook, right? Where's the follow through? And you can have the greatest ideas in the world, and life gets in the way. That's what a coach does. A coach helps you realize that accountability and keep you on track and help you achieve your best.
Yeah, and I always like the word coach always was very uncomfortable for me. Like there is no word that that I sort of that fits. People like mentor, and I'm like that. It feels weird, and coach feels weird because look at me, I'm clearly don't have the body of an athlete, but it is a way you do have to sort of help, sort of coach and guide people. Maybe guide is the right word, right? Sort of
Yeah.
guide people along the way on their journey and help give them the resources too. Like the first course that I created was free like it had nothing to do with make, and the other course I have is $7. So
Yeah.
clearly I'm not I'm not doing it to try and make, $1 million selling the courses, but it's a way to help people get started, whether it is sort of just ideating and getting the correct mindset and then having that sort of step by step roadmap to start building their dream business, which, so much of what we do is tied into our lives. You're trying to not just build a dream business, but build a dream life, really.
It's kind of what everyone wants to do. You like to say, helping people do what they love, right? And that's kind of the importance. And what's better goal than that?
Well, because there's this huge nexus between all these people that say that they want to do a certain thing. I'm going to write a book one day. I'm going to do this thing. 99% of the people don't do it. It's wanting to get those people who are here to that first, because once you start, it's the reason why my event is called Momentum. Once you start taking those first steps, once that first domino falls, the other ones come much easier.
No, that's wonderful. So let's talk about Disney. It's one of your things. And let's talk about Disney music specifically, right? Because that's kind of what this podcast is about. Although it's just wonderful learning about what you do, and I want to talk more about how people can find you later on as well. But so mentioned, you're a Disney expert. What is your opinion on the relationship between Disney and music?
It's one of those things that I think people don't necessarily think about first. Maybe for music, for movies, you might, right? Because
Yeah.
it's such an important part. But I did a series on the show about the music of the parks
Yep.
because I think so much of it is subconscious. When you walk onto Main Street, which and look, I'm still a kid at heart. Like Magic Kingdom is still my favorite of all the
Totally.
parks.
Totally.
The placemaking, the storytelling, the mood setting that music plays, especially in the Disney parks, is absolutely so critical to the experience that you're having with all five senses in 360 degrees. And sometimes the background music, we're not necessarily consciously thinking of it, but it changes the 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 mood. One of my favorite transitions is when you go to from Main Street USA to Adventureland,
Yep.
and that
Yep.
time music that transitions to these like dark, sort of cryptic jungle beats in the background. It's a beautiful transition that happens both visually as well as from an auditory perspective. And you don't think about it because you're not thinking about the music unless you're intentionally listening to it. And I think the sound designers, the musicians, everybody sort of puts that together is such an important part. And it's why it's something I wanted to really highlight on the show. Actually, this week's episode, I talked about my five favorite outdoor cues.
Yep.
Every single one of them, the music plays an important part of that too.
I just everyone should listen to it. I just listened to it on the way back from work. Oh, yeah, and it's funny. I just did a piece for Celebrations Magazine about Tower of Terror music, and you hit all the. I mean, you hit all the high points. It's exactly right. All those creepy, scratchy records, and again, it's you think it's just something about it, the way it's produced, the way the design is. It just kind of gets you all chills up and down your spine. It's amazing.
Yeah, it evokes an emotional feeling, right? It goes back to what we said before. We have this emotional connection with this place, and I think music is a very, very, very important part of it. Look, I think we all know, whether we want to admit it or not, there's a certain Disney song you put on, it's going to make the waterworks come
Oh
in
my God.
very quickly.
I got one. You got one? I got one.
I have a bunch.
Oh, I know yours. Actually, I know one. You probably have one.
Start
Okay,
singing it, man. I'll start crying right
do
here.
it. Do it.
No, I can't. But I mean, there's ones that evoke the emotions because it's nostalgia of
Yeah.
going to Disney with my parents. There's the thoughts of, my kids when they were little kids going to the parks and having their music that I know resonated with them. Certain music that hits differently because things that were going on in that cycle of
Yeah.
life. The songs that you would hear, my dad when he was sick right before he passed away, there was
Mm.
it was a movie that was out and there was just music that I would listen to in my car every day. And now whenever I hear it, like that's part of, that core memory for me.
Yeah. And someone once said, like, if you don't understand how important music is to the parks, imagine it's not there. And then the parks can feel the same. It's
Yeah.
not. It just goes to show how embedded it is. Kind of one of my hypotheses is that like, music is kind of, and I'm biased because I'm a music guy, but like is at the center of the Disney experience, right? And it's almost like a character. And I kind of think that there's Mickey, who's arguably the most important, and then there's music because in the movies, in the parks, it's so inextricably intertwined, and it helps guide you. It's an essential part of the storytelling piece. I just think I'm passionate about it, obviously, but I just think it really does create and heighten those emotions, and takes you to a whole different level of experience.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Uh, you mentioned you did a couple of episodes. Would love to get your thoughts. Like as you walk around, the parks, are there certain musical touch points that not necessarily, turn on the waterworks, but give you different emotions? Like what are some of your favorite musical touch points around the parks?
God. So, you go to Epcot and when Papillon plays in the background, it's quintessential Epcot for me. And it brings up all of these feelings of what Epcot was always supposed to be, right? This idea of the promise of tomorrow and things like that, as well as the nostalgic memories that I have that are subjective to me. Um, I love the music of Magic Kingdom because it's so varied as you go through the parks. Again, I love that old ragtime music of
Yeah.
Main Street USA. I love the music of the background music of Adventureland. I love, love, love. You mentioned Tower of Terror. I love the music of Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, it's great.
Put me on Sunset Boulevard. Put me around Echo Lake around Christmas time. If you see some little kid, some little guy weeping around, it's probably me because it's
Yeah,
just between the decorations and the music in the background. Um, all of it, like all of where we go. Look, even walking into Galaxy's Edge, like if you're a Star Wars fan,
of course.
you hear that music and it just sort of
Yeah.
brings back those emotions that made you fall in love with Star Wars for the first time. Whatever sort of trilogy is your trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, look, clearly, right?
No, no, I got you.
No, I'm an OG Star Wars guy, and walking through was Grand Avenue and through the tunnel when the symphonic suite comes on. It, Come on, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. And again, that it's not just the visual transition, right? Like when you walk onto Main Street USA from when it's this metaphorical curtain rising and you're in like a theater and it goes from dark and all of a sudden it opens up around you. it does so with the music as well. And that transition, it's a great point. That transition from Grand Avenue into not just the visuals, and there's almost this organic life
Yeah.
to Galaxy's Edge, but so much of it is punctuated by the music.
Yeah, and absolutely. And in terms of sound design, like especially walking around Epcot, which I know you did, but the transitions between the countries are just seamless. And I took video of it like a real nerd, just walking back like a crazy person. Like, I'm sure I'm surprised they didn't call security on me because I'm walking back and forth, with a phone trying to figure out. It's just amazing how seamless it is, and how just you just go from one country to the other. At a certain point, it shifts. It's right in beat, it's right in time, and it takes you to a completely new place.
Listen, man, I was the guy when I was recording my audio tours years ago. I would find the speakers in different, and I would sit there with my recorder for an hour like an idiot. Just I was also the guy walking around with his laptop and my webcam broadcasting before you were able to broadcast from your phone with live videos. So like I get the weird looks from Disney.
Yeah, but it pays off, and again, you have to capture it somehow, and that's I think the way to do it. It's funny you mentioned Adventureland. Actually, last episode I published, it was with the composer of the new Adventureland music. His name is
Oh,
Chaim
wow.
Azar. Yeah, and it's one thing you like to say is a surefire way to make Disney people crazy is to change something. Well, he was responsible for changing the old Adventureland music to the new Adventureland music. So it changed a couple of years ago. I know it's kind of putting you on the spot, but what it used to be and what it is now. Did any thoughts about it? Because I think the new one's actually pretty good.
I like it, but to that, and look, I don't get mad because I understand why things change and how they need to change, and the changes that are being made are not for you and I, they're for our
Yeah,
kids and for our kids' kids.
totally.
But when you take something away, I call it the ex-girlfriend effect. Like you don't appreciate how much you love something until it's not there anymore. Like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
I love you, please come back.
yeah.
It's like that with some of the music too. We don't want to hear those favorites that maybe we don't know by name. We have no idea who the artist is who composed or recorded it, but they mean something to us because of the familiarity. We like the comfort that I think Disney brings, and I think a lot of that is part in doing part to the music.
Yeah, like I said, there's the two elements of music. There's the background music, which again is so psychologically important to getting you, in the right mood. In fact, I learned, you probably knew this, that the music on Main Street USA during the day is much more upbeat, and at night it's much quieter because it's the Kiss Goodnight. And again, you don't think about it, but you're like, it's time to go to bed, like around 8 o'clock when the lights go down.
Yeah, and it's the um there was this time post COVID. Again, I'm very fortunate that I live right near Walt Disney World. I would go to Disney when they started to reopen the parks. And it was a very different experience for a
Yeah.
lot of reasons, right? So there was a lot that was missing, which was other guests, which was a pro and a con because the park was sort of all yours. But you also missed that cacophonous sound of just the hum of people. So what you noticed was that the music it seemed like it was louder because it wasn't all of us sort of dampening the sound of the
Mhm.
music. So it seemed like it was louder. It seemed like it was brighter. It was almost more in your face because that's what you heard first and foremost, as opposed to the hum of the chatter of other people. It was a little off not having a lot of other people there. Of course, now when I go, it's super crowded. I'm like, man, I miss those days. Like when there wasn't a lot of people, but it did definitely help me pay more attention to the music that was there and how it changed, how it transitioned from one place to another too.
It's interesting you raised that about the sound dampening and the volume because we were in Disneyland Paris last year.
Mm.
And obviously, I keep an ear open for this stuff now. The music is very prominent. And I don't think it's a matter of crowd dampening. I think the music is just bigger there. I also think that they kind of pay a much more honor and tribute to music in Disneyland Paris. I don't know your thoughts upon that. I mean, music is so important to Disney everywhere. And especially since they're doing the Disney Music Fest this year, which I'm going to try to get to, by the way. But it just goes to show that they really get the importance of music to Disney and its legacy.
We noticed it too when we went to Disneyland Paris. Like,
Ah,
music louder here, or am I just getting old? Like, turn that music down. No,
yes, got my
but
lawn.
not in an intrusive type of a way, but it just felt more pronounced, maybe more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's It's obviously intentional, but what the thought processes are from park to park.
And so there's the background music, which kind of is more subconscious, but then there's the live music as well, and there's so many amazing arrays and talented performers. Any particular live acts that you have a particular affinity for?
Oh man, I love sort of the unexpected pop-up music
Mm,
arcs. Well, I think, you know, the Garden Rocks and Eat to the Beat concerts is such a great addition to Epcot. I think there's nothing better than watching the JAMMitors come out and people just sort of like stop in their tracks and these just incredible percussionists just playing live music right in front with, the most rudimentary of, if you want to even call them instruments, and just what a guest satisfier and crowd pleaser those are. But when they have live music, so I'm thinking we were talking about Sunset Boulevard and
yeah,
or Terror, Jollywood Nights in
yeah.
the past couple of years. They had a group there, and I forget what they called them, what their name was, but it was a trio that were singing the 30s and 40s hits, and I was entranced by just how good they were. So good. How good were they? They were so good that when I do a lot of events in Disney. I did a Tip Top Club event, and I was like, I want her, like I want them to come and do it because they were so good and helped set the mood so well. Like they were the highlight of that event for us because of just how important, and it took this setting that was not out and about in the parks. It was in a venue and made it feel like you had traveled back in time because of just how good, and the instruments that they used. So live music, I think, is such an important part of the Disney experience.
Yeah, I'm agreed. I'm particularly fond of the Casey's corner piano players, especially Grayson. He's all over
My
the internet
God,
now.
the guy is just,
Are you kidding me with this guy?
you watch, you're like, he can't, there's no way he's playing. Yeah, it's you want to talk about people who are gifted and talented on just a whole different level.
I call him the Eddie Van Halen of ragtime piano,
Yeah.
which is by the way not an exaggeration. The guy is technically extraordinarily gifted.
And creative, how he
Yeah,
would blend different songs and one just on the fly based on, it guesses, hey, can you do Grim Grinning Ghosts and, Supercalifragilistic? He's like, yeah, man, I got you. Do it. And
no problem. Doing it, I mean, just all a hand spin around. It's quite remarkable. Yeah, I just wonder, you're a fan of Main Street USA, fan of Sunset Boulevard. I just wonder because I'm the same way. Do you think it's because of that's where Disney got its start, and we're tied to the nostalgia of it, and it evokes like, hey, what would have been like to be there at this time when Walt was walking around, LA? To me, that's kind of why I think I dig it so much, just as I like psychologically try to evaluate it.
you know what? It was a simpler time. The
Mhm.
music was simpler, the messaging was simpler. Um, the lyrics were again, does not sound like an old man. If I was to turn on the radio now, I'd be like, what did he say? I can't understand. Like, but I dig sort of the simplicity of whether it's, you know, Benny Goodman on Sunset Boulevard or a ragtime pianist, but also opposite end of the spectrum, some of the music, like David Arkenstone music in Epcot, I
Yeah.
absolutely love. Very, very different sides of the coin, but I think that's the beauty of it. Like no matter where you go, there's something that you'll find, and then obviously being able to walk through things like World Showcase and being exposed to, like the taiko drummers in Epcot are
Yeah.
my favorite.
Great.
There's from a cultural perspective, being able to be exposed to live music from other cultures performed by people from that country is a rare thing to be able to experience.
It's amazing. And I know you mentioned some of the live bands coming as well, at Epcot. Like I know that for the festival, I think Tommy DiCarlo from Boston was there, who I wanted to see, and Queensryche was there. And we just gotten back. I'm like, honey, I'm gonna go see Queensryche in Orlando. It didn't fly, but I really wanted to.
Yeah, but now that you have a podcast, be like, listen, I got to do it for the show. Like it's a research trip for the show.
That's why I'm working. That's why I'm working to go to Disneyland Paris again so I can do the Disney Music Festival. I think it's research. You got to do it. How can I be
If
a
you need any
credible
help, if you need like
podcast?
a note from me or something, I'm happy to.
I actually, something new. I just might ask you to do that. Um, so again, not to put you on the spot, but one of my favorite things that you do on your podcast is the food reviews. You just had one about the cake bake shop, which I'm not embarrassed to admit, we were just there. I was there 3 times. We were literally there 3 times. One,
People like, really? Did you really? I went out to dinner with somebody last night. They're like, come on, Lou, tell me the truth. Did you really like it that much? I'm like, yeah, I really liked it that much. Like, I know people are like, oh, the price is, if something is worth it to you,
yeah,
right? And I think that it very much is an experience going to eat there. It is. I've been there for breakfast and lunch and
yep.
cake. I have not been there for dinner yet, so it's the last thing last piece of the puzzle for me.
Literally, we started with lunch, and then we came back for tea and cake, and then we came back for breakfast. And we have gluten allergies in our family, and best
Yeah.
pancakes I've ever had. Best gluten-free pancakes ever. Just again, I digress. But like I do love the food element. The Savor 16 you just did was fantastic. But you and I both seem to be foodies. Tying back into music,
Mhm.
are there any Disney food songs that resonate with you?
So the two that quickly jumped in my mind, and if I had to sort of pick one, so I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's Le Facin from Ratatouille,
That's
which I
one,
love.
100%.
But if you're going to the parks, come with me to Epcot Center, and I have 4 words for you, my friend.
What do you
And
got?
they are veggie, veggie, fruit, fruit. So, I mean, in 1983, man, that was, it's music that I grew up with, but it was fun and it was funny and it was sharing an important message without being like overly, preachy or anything like that. And yeah, I loved veggie, veggie, fruit, fruit way more than I liked Food Rocks. So
Yes, agreed.
yeah,
But yeah, Le Festin definitely it hits all the buttons. A, it makes you want to be in Paris.
yeah.
B, it makes you want to eat French food.
Or French fries, either like, yeah.
Yeah, or French toast. Anything like that is
The word
totally
brand
fine.
or French it is, right? Anything with
Uh,
carbohydrates, basically.
yeah, that was. And you are a French fry guy, aren't you? That's your thing.
This is a body built on carbs. There's not a lot
Delicious.
of protein flowing through this body.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino, who wrote Le
Oh
Festin,
God, yeah.
it just what a remarkable talent he is.
People ask me all the time, like, who would you love to have on the show? He is one of those people. I fell in love with Michael Giacchino from Lost,
Yeah.
which is the best show ever put on television. And you want to talk about being able to evoke emotion without a single word. It's he is a master at that.
Yeah, you want to start crying, you do the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is the best part of the movie.
Eh,
Like,
there's no doubt about it. Yeah, he's a special talent. And he did Coco. It's remarkable. So it's funny. I was thinking of food related songs with a very, very broad, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals liberal interpretation of what, food related. So Le Festin was one of them. Obviously, Be Our Guest, Le Poisson, and hey, it's two East Coast guys, Bella Notte.
yeah, it's. I thought about that for a second, but it really, because I tried to think very quickly.
Yep.
There's music that is present when something food related is going on, and I'm like, no, let me try and get as literal as I possibly can.
Yeah,
A veggie ready film. I'm like, this is these songs, but
yeah.
that's right. There's the obvious ones, but I'm like, let me try and get one that I probably wouldn't think that I would say. So
That was not on my list, and oh, of course, and good on you for that one. Um, so there's a lot, and you're such a great source of information of all the Disney stuff coming down. There's so much Disney stuff happening, so many announcements since D23 and South by Southwest. What are you most excited about?
I'm going to give you the honest answer, but probably not the one that you want to hear. The things that I'm most excited about are the things that we haven't heard yet.
Oh,
Meaning, we got a lot at D23. I think we're going to get some more at Destination D later on this year. And there's a lot of I'll explain what I mean. Relatively small-ish things. Monsters Inc. land is not any small undertaking.
yeah.
You want to make people lose their minds, start talking about cars coming into Magic Kingdom, take away Tom Sawyer Island, but I digress. However, I just have a feeling that there is much more to come. I've been saying it for years. Eventually, I'm going to be right. I don't just mean a reimagining of the Imagination Pavilion. I think
Hmm.
I think that has been that plane has been in flight for a while and they're waiting for the right time. But I think that there's something much bigger coming. I do not necessarily believe that Disney is a company that is reactionary.
Yeah.
They've had their 10-year plan in place for 10 years. Um, Bob Iger and Josh have talked about, um, really plussing up the experience, and they've used certain words over and over again. I think there's an ace in the hole that they are holding for the appropriate time. Folks are talking about that dark place down the street.
Yeah.
Look, Epic,
I don't know. Is there one? Is there something going on though
there
now?
is, there is, and look, we as guests are the ones that benefit by having this everybody raising the bar. Epic Universe is going to make Disney make itself better, right? They hold themselves to a high standard, but now competition is the greatest like incentivizer to make you do even better. Without even Walt Disney said, like without competition, you die. Like you need the competition. So I think that there is something monumental that is coming. I just have a gut feeling. I don't know if it is the fifth gate. I don't know if
Mm.
it's Marvel at Walt Disney World. But I just have a feeling that there's something else that is coming that nobody has any idea is coming down the pike.
Well, that would be wonderful if true. I mean, it's fun to speculate, and yeah, I haven't put on the law hat in a while, and who knows if they can ever solve the east of the Mississippi, Marvel issue.
I think I already think that that's starting to happen because Universal is out of space, right? They're out of space. Epic Universe is down. I still want to see how they're going to get guests down the street. However, they also the Marvel Superhero Island in Universal Studios Orlando is locked into these characters as they were portrayed in the comic books in the 60s and 70s. There's a huge disconnect. When a kid goes in, there's like, who's the guy in the yellow suit and what's that freaky looking green guy? It doesn't sort of mesh with what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah.
I also think Universal needs that space. They probably don't love having to open up their books to Disney and show the revenue that is being generated by them. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. Like, look, if I was Disney, I'd be like, look, you can have the Simpsons back. You give us Marvel, you take the Simpsons, everybody goes home happy.
I think that what a great idea. But I do think you're right about the competition purposes, and even internally within Disney, right? I remember Flight of Passage came out. I'm like, this is the best ride I've ever been in my entire life. How does it get better? And then, oh, here's Rise of the Resistance, which is still now the best ride. But who knows what that is what How to Train Your Dragon or the Frankenstein and the Dracula ride are going to do. But I do think it's going to competition. There is going to be a way to how do we get more people here? I think it's going to be better for everyone. I don't know if prices are going to come down, but it's going to be more value add things, I think.
Yeah, prices coming down is probably never going to happen because the only way, look, man, these parks, especially at Disney, they're at high capacity pretty much all year long, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you want as a company and as certainly as a stockholder. But unfortunately the only way to limit the crowd issues, right? So you can't have it both ways. You
Yeah.
can't complain about the crowds and then be like, because the only way to do that is by money, is by raising the prices year over year. It's the only way to sort of self-limit. And it's not just Disney who does that. It's always the race to see who's going to go first. Is
Sure.
Universal to raise their prices first and then Disney? But it's the same thing, um, and it's industry wide. It's not just in the theme park. So
Um, yeah, I want to be constant of your time. You've been so generous. Yeah, one thing you mentioned, and I don't know how much farther along, you have a bunch of new initiatives coming up. I don't know if you're prepared to continue to announce it, but first of all, tell people how they can find you, work with you, and what you're working on.
it's a lot. So everything I do on the Disney side of things is at wdwradio.com. Everything I do on the business side of things is at loumongello.com. And again, there's the free courses. There's a $7 course. I've got Momentum Weekend Workshop. I do a Momentum Retreat. I think I've announced. Well, if not, I'm saying right now, I'm going to be doing a Momentum at Sea event.
Breaking news, breaking news.
Um, I did announce it. I haven't released it yet.
Yeah,
I'm also starting a new business related podcast, right? Again, because I want to try and help more people
sure.
at scale. That'll hopefully be coming out in the next few weeks, months, whatever it's going to be. So, and I'm at Lou Mongello on all social.
Yeah, I will drop all those in the show notes. Listen, I don't think I'm understanding when I say you need, if you don't listen to WW Radio, obviously you're missing out, but listen to Lou. I think I told you, Lou, I'm going to try to go to Momentum this year as well. Excited to work with you. And I am so appreciative of you taking time. I know you say, it's important for people to spend their time. I am just as grateful for you spending your busy time with me. So thank you so much for making this happen and for your insight and perspective.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, man. I really appreciate it. And this was, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. The trial attorney in you is coming out because you make it very easy, very natural, and very insightful. And I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that as well. Lou, thank you so much. Looking forward to keeping in touch and keeping track. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, brother.